So I mentioned that I was going to, I'll look at one exercise, and it's something I use a lot. It's a ninth chord, and I use dominant chords a lot too, dominant scales. So it's just and yeah, then I just try to, essentially play it as fast as I can, right? And so the one below it, the C major. So if you notice on the top end, for me, so it's those two notes there that create the challenge, right? If you're doing it in C major, for me again, and what's really funny is the difference between and it's actually harder to do the higher one by quite a bit for some reason. And then the third example is where those upper two notes, they have different fingerings. So even doing that slur on the bottom end, I can get going pretty good. But when you try play it faster up, and I'm going to do it too fast on purpose to show you what I mean. It was okay, but it was really airy on a couple of those notes. But yeah, so, and when you do it with so 3 examples of those scales. One where you have the same note, but it's lower in the octave. One where you have different notes. And then the other one that I want to focus on, which is harder for me, is the third one, where it's higher. It starts to get to my area where it's difficult to slur between those two notes. So we're going to focus on that one, and we're going to increase the tension. So finding out which of those was the hardest for me was the first step. The second step then is trying to drive the easier one trying to drive the harder one to, the fastest tempo possible, and figuring out what the problem is. So I'm just at 90 beats per minute right now, and you can do it slow first and then fast for the second one. Not much issue there. Now faster. So not bad, but a little airy. Now I'm going to try tonguing it. So that was slurred. Now I'll try tonguing it, see if I get a different result. Just single tongue. So not bad. Now I'll try double tonguing. A little rough, not a huge fan. Now dual tongue. So a lot of difficulty hitting that upper note, which is why I've sort of started going away from doodle tonguing, because it's harder up the octave. So now back to the slurring, right, which was clearly my easiest one, and I spent a lot of time slurring. Like some trumpet players have a harder time with slurring, but I seem to have a harder time with the tonguing aspect of it. So anyway. Yeah. so now we'll just increase it to 100, see if it breaks down. So I do notice that I have to change like my mouse structure to hit that higher note. But it was okay, it was reasonable. I'm gonna push myself even a little bit farther. So let's try 110. Yes, that third one started to get in there, but that was okay. Like there was a one run in there. We'll go 120. Yeah, so that was reasonably clean. We'll go 130. Missed the end there, but it was okay. Let's keep push. I'll go up to 140. So now it's not going to be great. It's pretty fast. Yeah. Okay, we'll do 150. So yeah, now you're starting to see where hitting that hard note is really tough. So we isolate that. Now we sort of, the scales I'm okay with. That's a completely different thing. That's like I wonder how I can. Let me keep going until the scale breaks down. $180. Not quite my max. Let me try 190. Alright, I'll do this is the last one on 200. So I'm really just focusing at that point, right? I'm just focusing on the start and the end note, right? Like it's more about, I'm not even really thinking in 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2. I'm more thinking 1, 1, 1, and it's, right? So I'm hitting those two notes, just trying to go as fast as I can through them. So that's one thing, right? And I noticed that it's this finger here that is the one that sort of breaks down the faster I go. And that's why I mentioned before that Clifford Brown passage, I had to twist my finger and stuff because there's this pinky finger that wants to do stuff. And then see, when I move this finger here, how both these two move, whereas I can move this one with only a little bit of movement from my middle. And then the middle finger has a little bit of movement from this one. But then when I move this, I get the need to want to move these muscles as well. You're engaging more muscle groups to support moving this finger. So it's with this weird little micro thing where okay, as soon as I do this, I need engagement for all these fingers. So one thing I haven't needed to play this. This is clearly not my limitation, playing the scales, but like if I wanted to, I would try to like, you know, I would try to like disengage these completely and try to, you know, like this, and try to just, it's weird. Anyway, so I would try to figure that out, like how I can just engage this finger without these two, because that's energy, that's inefficiency, and whatever. So yeah, so that's on that. But clearly where the issue is the upper notes. You can kind of see how there's a whole bunch of muscles twitching here. And I think one of the goals for efficiency is to try to like, you know, reduce the amount of muscle engagement with what you're trying to do. And we saw it, you know, more easily, you know, when I was using that finger to go a bit faster. So for me, what I've been working on and will continue is driving the tempo down. And then this is where the experimentation comes, because I don't really like tonguing, but if that is the solution to get me a little bit faster, maybe that's what I do. Right? So right? So I mean, now I do that and I try to bring up the tempo, and even just that isolated one, it breaks down because the note to note stuff isn't perfect, and so I guess I'm trying to figure out, really try to feel what's going on in the airstream when that's happening, and yeah. And I guess like, I don't know, like that's why I think slurring I just find a little bit easier, because engaging here and here I find a little bit easier than engaging my tongue. I don't know. It's interesting. And if these I mean, these muscles twitch really rapidly, so if that is sort of part of the solution that I need to explore, then I think I will. So keep in mind, like, you should be writing this down, right? So like, I think I got up to 120 or something, 130 before the exercise started to break down really bad, or maybe 150. But note 150. Go back, isolate this, even in one session, right? Because now you're minutely focused on what's going on with that problem area in that passage. So, so I'm starting to feel now where I can engage the lower portion of my mouth as a means, weirdly, to like drive the back of my tongue up and like force a little bit more air out to get it higher. Yeah, okay. So that is starting to cut. That's starting to get good, right? And I've been at this for about a week, and now let's try. I think I can go up to even 130. I missed one of the notes. Now, when you're doing the isolated stuff, in my opinion, I think it's so important to get it perfect. So that's why, to me, when I'm looking at that exercise right there that I just did, I don't know if I like now I can be pretty hard on myself too, so I don't know if I would consider that a pass, right? And when you're trying to focus on some of these really detailed stuff, I think it's at that point where it's more important to be perfect. I think it's important to be perfect now rather than necessarily progress. And you could even debate whether or not you dial it back. I'm at 130 beats per minute now. Do I dial it back to 120 and do that a bunch, right? And I think the answer is probably, right? I think you go to fail and then you dial it back and then you stay there for a week or whatever, a couple days. Then you try to push yourself again. So it's this incremental pushing approach. And now when I go and play it, when I did this, I mean, even earlier last week, like I was struggling getting 90 beats per minute for this exercise in 16th notes. And now I'll do it first, but. So you notice too, I keep getting when the timing shifts ever so slightly, it's hard to keep the runs going consecutively. So that's sort of the next level test is you string together these runs. So you try to do 3 and see how out of phase you go. So that's 130. And I'm definitely trying to push it for this, but I'm going to go back to 120 and it should be okay. And I'm going to try to string together 3. Well, okay, so there was some there that were good. I definitely recovered some of the out of phase time shifting towards the later ends. I'm still missing some of the notes in the sort of upper. The biggest thing I noticed is I'm really putting my mouth on the mouthpiece pretty hard. So I mean, to be lighter, you want to remove some of that, or to play faster, you want to be a little bit lighter. And that's what I was able to get to when I was stuck in one range, right? So one of the things that happens for me anyway, the lower I play, I tend to open wide. And then while it's still wide open, trying to go back up the octave, instead of doing these micro adjustments to play up there, I play harder. So I keep the maintain. Anyway, so it's something that I've got to work on myself. And that's why going between these two areas of the trumpet on the scale can be quite challenging, especially when you're striving for feed, and you got to be really precise and efficient with how you're doing it. But yeah, I that's the thing though. I pushed myself. I failed a bunch. I found some sort of really there was a couple there when I was just doing the E to the C, where I was like, that's what it's supposed to feel like. And I go, okay, so doing just that in isolation is going to be really effective for me to increase my overall speed and accuracy when I'm trying to do these things. And yeah, that's a really important takeaway. And that's a pretty simple thing. And then all of a sudden, I open up an extra 20 beats per minute, after a week of doing it or something like that. It's pretty, but it might be different for other people. So that's why I say it's about process. And I've processed this session from a micro and macro perspective. Yeah, what I want to do is really just focus on being a bit lighter in those top 2 notes. And the last thing I'll sort of say about it is consciously, that whole idea of confidence. And it takes a while, right? Like it's one of the things where, with improvisation and you hit a wrong note, it's important to forget about it or whatever and move on or make it better or whatever. Like it's that moving on to something else. And whereas I traditionally approach music from thinking um, first, that gives me the biggest challenge because my thinking starts to impact my self-confidence. And it's little stuff like this that really get exploited when you're trying to pay that fast. Why I say that? Well, for example, when I miss one of the two notes in that upper range, it throws off my timing. Instead of feeling where the next note should be, I immediately, after the next two notes happen so fast, I can feel the thinking. It's weird to say, but I can feel it. Like I'm already wondering what happened in those notes instead of thinking about the next two. And then it takes me two or three notes to correct that instantaneously and then think about how I'm going to recover to get as many notes in as possible and then hit the root note so I can keep going. This all happens in a fraction of a second, but it's still there. So anyway, it's quite interesting. So, when you hit those wrong notes, it can affect your overall tempo. And being able to recognize that and be self-aware and then understanding how that influences your overall timing, I think is really important. Yeah. So that's that one. I'll be doing that other exercise, the isolated exercise, a lot over the next at least the next week to try and increase my speed.